There is something you have been waiting for, and I need you to look at that waiting very carefully right now. Not the thing you're waiting for, but the waiting itself. Look at it. Look at the shape of it. Look at how long it has been there. Because what I'm about to show you is that the waiting is not a pause in your story. It is the story. And the moment you see it clearly, the moment you stop looking past it and actually look at it, something happens that no amount of motivation, no surge of inspiration, no perfect set of conditions could ever produce. The waiting ends. Not because the thing you were waiting for finally arrived, but because you finally stopped. I have watched this pattern for longer than you have been alive. The ones who wait for motivation to strike are still waiting. The ones who decided are already gone. And I do not say that to produce urgency in you, because urgency is just another form of waiting. Waiting for the feeling of urgency to be strong enough to move you. I say it because it is the precise, clinical, observable truth of what happens when a human being chooses the posture of waiting over the posture of decision. The waiting accumulates, it compounds, it becomes the architecture of a life. Not the temporary structure you told yourself it was, not the bridge you were standing on while you gathered your courage, but the permanent address, the place where you actually live. This is not a video about motivation. Let me be exact about that from the beginning. Because you came here carrying a certain expectation. And that expectation is worth examining before we go any further. You came here because something in you is tired. Tired of the gap between where you are and where you know you could be. Tired of the distance between the version of yourself you can clearly see and the version that wakes up every morning and waits. You came here hoping that something said in the right way, with the right force, at the right moment, might finally produce the feeling that moves you. The feeling of readiness, the feeling of power, the feeling that today is different. But look closer. What you are actually looking for is not a feeling. What you are looking for is permission. Permission to step across the line you have been standing at, sometimes for years, without waiting for the conditions on the other side to guarantee your safety first. And here's what I want you to understand about that. No feeling, no matter how intense, no matter how perfectly timed, can give you what a decision gives you. Because feelings are weather. They move through, they arrive, they peak, they dissipate, and they leave you standing in the same place you were before they came, except now you have evidence that even when you feel it, nothing changes. And that evidence is dangerous because it begins to teach you that you cannot be trusted, that the fire in you is decorative, that the version of yourself you can see is permanently out of reach. That is not the truth, but it becomes the truth when you keep waiting for the feeling to do what only a decision can do. So today we are not going to talk about motivation, we are going to talk about observation. We are going to look with the kind of unflinching, precise, unblinking attention that most people spend their entire lives avoiding, at the exact mechanism that keeps a human being suspended in the posture of waiting. We are going to look at what the waiting actually is, what it is made of, what it is protecting, and what happens at the quantum level of your reality when you stop. When you genuinely, completely, irrevocably stop waiting and simply decide. Because here's what quantum mechanics has confirmed about the nature of observation and reality. What you watch, you change. What you avoid watching controls you. And the waiting the perpetual, comfortable, socially acceptable, spiritually disguised posture of waiting is one of the most sophisticated avoidance strategies the human mind has ever constructed. It looks like patience. It presents itself as wisdom. It tells you it is being responsible, being careful, being realistic. And all of that is a story the mind tells to avoid the one thing it fears more than failure. It fears the moment of clear seeing. The moment you look directly at what has been running your life and recognize it for exactly what it is. That moment is now. Let's begin. Look at the last time you felt genuinely motivated. I mean the real thing, not the performance of it, not the social media version where you posted something that sounded decisive. I mean the actual interior experience of being moved, of feeling the alignment between who you are and what you are doing so precisely that the action felt effortless, almost inevitable. You remember it. Maybe it was a long time ago. Maybe it was recent. But you remember the texture of it, the way it felt like being carried rather than pushing, the way the resistance seemed to dissolve, the way you thought, this is what it's supposed to feel like, this is who I actually am. And then it passed, and you went back to waiting for it to return. Now look closer. Look at what you did in the space between that feeling and right now. How many times did you try to recreate the conditions that produced it? How many mornings did you try to engineer the right environment, the right playlist, the right ritual, the right amount of coffee, the right inspirational input, trying to summon the feeling back like a weather pattern you could control? How many times did it almost work? How many times did you feel the edges of it, the slight warmth of approaching momentum, only to watch it dissipate before it was strong enough to carry you somewhere that mattered? This is the trap, and it is a trap so well constructed, so deeply embedded in the cultural narrative around success and potential and becoming, that most people never see it as a trap at all. They see it as a process. They call it the journey. They tell themselves they are learning, growing, preparing. And some of that is true. But underneath the language of growth, underneath the vocabulary of the journey, there is something else happening, something worth looking at directly. There is a negotiation, a quiet, ongoing, almost unconscious negotiation between the part of you that knows what you are capable of and the part of you that is terrified of finding out whether that knowing is accurate. And the currency of that negotiation is time. The part that is afraid buys time by producing the language of preparation. More research, more planning, more alignment, more readiness. And the part that knows watches the time pass and grows quieter, not because it has given up, but because it is waiting for you to stop negotiating and simply decide. That negotiation is what I want you to observe today, not to judge it, not to force it to stop through sheer willpower, but to watch it. Because here is the principle that underlies everything we are going to explore together. What you observe with genuine clarity, you change. Not by trying to change it, not by applying force or strategy or technique to it, but by seeing it so completely, so precisely, so unflinchingly that it cannot maintain its structure in the light of your attention. The waiting cannot survive being fully seen. That is the promise of this transmission, and it is not a motivational promise. It is a quantum mechanical one. Now let me show you the science, not as decoration, not as borrowed credibility, but because the physics of what we are describing is exact. It is measurable, and understanding it will change the way you see your own capacity to transform your reality. In quantum mechanics, there is a principle called the observer effect. At its most fundamental level, it describes something that initially seems impossible to the classical Newtonian mind. The act of observation itself changes what is being observed, not metaphorically, not philosophically, literally, measurably, reproducibly. When quantum particles are not being observed, they exist in what physicists call a superposition, a state of simultaneous possibility. They are not in one place. They are in all possible places at once, existing as a probability wave, a field of potential outcomes. Every possible version of the particle's position, momentum, and state exists simultaneously until the moment of observation. And then, only then, the wave function collapses, the particle appears. It takes a specific form. It becomes real in the classical sense. The observation is not passive. The observation is the event that creates the specific reality. Now, I want you to sit with what that means, because this is not a metaphor I am reaching for to make a philosophical point. This is the actual, documented, experimentally verified behavior of reality at its most fundamental level. Reality at the quantum level does not have a fixed form independent of observation. It exists as potential until something observes it, and then it becomes specific. What you observe, you change. What you fail to observe remains in superposition, in the blur of all possible states, never collapsing into anything concrete, never becoming real. Look at your life through this lens. Look at the areas where you have been most careful not to observe too clearly. The areas where you have maintained what I'm going to call strategic vagueness, a careful, deliberate blurriness that keeps the possibilities open without forcing any of them to collapse into the specificity of commitment. You know these areas. You can feel them right now as I describe them. The relationship dynamic you have been examining from a comfortable distance without ever looking directly at what it is doing to you. The career path you have been circling for years without ever landing on a specific decision. The version of yourself you can see clearly enough to want but never clearly enough to commit to. The waiting that you have dressed in the language of wisdom and patience and right timing. All of it exists in superposition. All of it remains potential because you have not yet looked at it with the quality of attention that collapses the wave function. The quality of attention that says, I see this. I see exactly what this is, and I am no longer looking away. That is the observer effect applied to the architecture of a human life, and it is not less real for being applied at the macro scale. Because here is what the quantum principle reveals when you understand it deeply. The collapse from potential to actual is not a function of force. It is not a function of effort or strategy or willpower. It is a function of observation, of seeing clearly, of bringing the full quality of your attention to bear on the thing that has been living in the comfortable blur of your avoidance. The moment you see it, it collapses, it becomes specific, and specific things can be worked with. Specific things can be changed, refined, built upon, walked away from, or walked toward. The blur you cannot walk toward a blur. You cannot build on a superposition. You cannot become something that exists only as simultaneous possibility. You have to look. And the looking itself is the act of creation. If what you are seeing in this transmission is landing for you, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to this channel. It helps more observers find their way here, and we are just getting started. This is not what you think it is. This is not a pep talk dressed in scientific language. This is a precise description of the mechanics by which human beings either transform their reality or remain suspended in the comfortable paralysis of potential. And I'm pointing at it this directly because the moment you see it, the moment you genuinely observe what has been happening, you will understand that everything you have been waiting for has been waiting for you to stop waiting. To look, to see, to collapse the superposition of your own becoming into the specificity of a decision. Let me show you what this looks like in a human life, not abstractly, concretely, with the kind of precision that makes it impossible to look away. Watch this carefully. There is a story I want to tell you, a story about a man named Elias. Elias was, by every external measure, a man of extraordinary potential. Everyone who knew him said so. His teachers said it. His colleagues said it. The people who loved him said it. He was intelligent in a way that was almost inconvenient. The kind of intelligence that could see the shape of a problem before most people could even articulate it. That could identify the flaw in a plan before the plan had fully formed. He could see with remarkable clarity what was possible. For himself, for the projects he touched, for the people around him. He could see the potential in everything, and he could not commit to any of it, not because he was lazy, not because he lacked ambition. Elias had more ambition than most rooms could contain, but his ambition existed in the same state as those quantum particles before observation. As a field of simultaneous possibilities, none of them collapsed into anything specific, none of them real in the way that required him to show up and be accountable to the shape of a specific choice. He had plans, he had ideas. He had notebooks full of visions, each one detailed enough to be convincing, each one carefully kept at the distance that protected it from the test of execution. He was always preparing, always almost ready, always waiting for the conditions to align in the way that would make the risk feel acceptable, the way that would make the leap feel safe. The years moved through him, the way weather moves through an open field, leaving traces, changing the surface, but not the ground beneath it. One evening, and this is the moment I want you to watch, Elias was sitting alone in a room that had once felt temporary. He had moved into it as a transitional space, a placeholder while he figured out the next thing. That had been 7 years ago, and sitting in that room, in the particular quality of silence that arrives when you have run out of things to plan, and not enough courage to begin, Elias did something he had been carefully avoiding for a very long time. He looked, not at the notebooks, not at the plans, not at the potential. He looked at the pattern. He looked at the shape of the 7 years. He looked at the way each opportunity had been approached, and then carefully, skillfully, convincingly deferred. He looked at the language he had used to himself, the language of patience, of preparation, of wisdom, of waiting for the right moment. And he looked at it without the usual mercy he extended to himself, without the softening, without the story. He looked at it the way you look at something you are finally willing to see. And what he saw was not a man of extraordinary potential, waiting for the right moment. What he saw was a man who had constructed an elaborate, sophisticated, internally consistent architecture of avoidance, and called it patience. Who had turned the act of not deciding into a philosophy? Who had made waiting into an identity? The moment he saw it, the exact moment the observation became complete, something happened that Elias had not expected. He had expected grief. He had expected the crushing weight of 7 years of lost time pressing down on him. He had expected shame or despair, or the particular kind of exhaustion that comes from finally admitting something you have been running from. What he felt instead was something closer to clarity, as if a fog he had been living inside for so long he had forgotten it was fog suddenly thinned, and he could see the actual shape of the room he was in, the actual dimensions of his life, not the potential dimensions, the actual ones. And for the first time in years, he could see exactly where he was standing. And from exactly where you are standing, you can take a step, not from where you wish you were, not from the version of your life that exists in the notebooks, from here, from this exact, specific, clearly observed location. Elias did not have a surge of motivation that night. He did not feel the fire. He did not experience the dramatic internal shift that the movies would require. He simply made a decision, quietly, without ceremony. He decided who he was going to be, not someday, not when the conditions were better, not when he felt ready. Now. This version, this person, in this room, with this particular accumulation of years and choices and deferred moments behind him. And then he went to sleep. And when he woke up the next morning, he acted like that person before he felt like it, before the feeling of readiness arrived, before the conditions were favorable. He acted from the identity he had decided on, not from the mood he woke up with. That is not an inspiring story, it is a precise one, and the precision is what matters. Because what Elias did in that room was not find motivation. He did not manufacture inspiration. He did not optimize his environment or upgrade his morning routine or consume content that made him feel temporarily aligned with his potential. He observed, he looked at the pattern with complete clarity. He let the observation collapse the superposition of his life from all possible versions into one specific, committed, countable version. And then he acted from that version. The observation was the transformation, not a step toward it, the observation itself. And you have been both Elias in the room and Elias in the notebooks. You have been the one who can see the potential and the one who keeps it safely blurred. But you are here now, and something in you chose to look today. That is not an accident. That is the observer beginning to turn its gaze in the right direction. What did you see in Elias that you recognized in yourself? Drop it in the comments, not what you plan to do about it, what you saw. The specific thing that tightened when I described it. Name it here in this field of observers and watch what that naming does. Let's go deeper into what you're actually seeing. There's a specific fear underneath the waiting. I want to name it precisely because naming it is the act of observation that begins to dissolve it. The fear is not of failure. Most people believe it is fear of failure that keeps them suspended in the posture of waiting. But look closer. Look at the actual interior experience of the moment before you would take the step. The moment when the decision is right there, available, and something in you pulls back. What is the texture of that pullback? What is it actually protecting? It is protecting the identity. Here's what I mean. When you maintain vagueness about who you are and what you are committed to, you maintain a kind of invulnerability. If you never declare specifically who you are going to be, then you can never specifically fail to become that person. The failure, when it comes, and it always comes because action always produces some proportion of failure. The failure is bounded. It reaches only as far as the attempt. It does not reach the identity itself, because the identity was never specific enough to be threatened. But the moment you decide, the moment you collapse the superposition and say, with genuine resolution, "This is who I am now. This is the person I am committed to being," the moment you do that, the stakes change. Now, failure is personal. Now, the evidence accumulates not just about the attempt, but about the person. And the mind, whose primary function it believes is to protect you from the experience of being exposed as less than you hoped, reads that risk as existential. And so it produces the waiting, it produces the preparation, it produces the research and the planning and the alignment seeking and the condition gathering. All of it in service of the one objective: keep the identity vague enough that it cannot be specifically threatened. This protection is destroying you. I say that without drama and without judgment. I say it as an observation because the vagueness that protects you from specific failure is the same vagueness that prevents you from becoming anything specific. You cannot build something real on a foundation of strategic blur. You cannot become someone in particular by carefully avoiding the commitment to being anyone in particular. The protection and the potential are incompatible. You cannot have both. And this is where the quantum principle becomes not just interesting, but urgent. Because in the quantum field, the superposition is not a resting state. It is not a safe place to remain indefinitely. The wave function does not stay in superposition forever, waiting for you to feel ready to observe it. Reality has a way of collapsing potential into specific form whether you choose the moment of observation or not. The only question is whether you are the one who does the observing, whether you're the one who chooses the specific form, or whether the collapse happens through the accumulation of time and circumstance and the slow erosion of possibility. The ones who wait long enough discover that the choice was made for them. Not by the universe, by the waiting itself. This is where I want to introduce the second layer of the observer effect. Because there is something about observation that goes beyond simply seeing what is there. There's a quality of observation that changes the thing being observed, not just by collapsing its superposition, but by altering its trajectory. By introducing the observer's frequency into the system and watching the system reorganize around that frequency. In the double-slit experiment, the foundational demonstration of quantum observation, particles fired through two slits create different patterns depending on whether they are being observed. When not observed, they behave as waves passing through both slits simultaneously and creating an interference pattern. When observed, when a detector is placed to measure which slit the particle passes through, the interference pattern disappears. The particle behaves as a particle. It goes through one slit. It becomes specific, but here is the part that is rarely discussed in the motivational application of this principle. The observer does not have to do anything to produce this effect. The observer does not push the particle, does not force it through one slit or the other, does not apply effort or strategy to the system. The observer simply observes. The observation is sufficient. The presence of clear, directed, genuine attention is enough to change the behavior of the system entirely. This is what I am inviting you to understand about your own life. You do not need to force the change. You do not need to manufacture the motivation or engineer the perfect conditions or construct the optimal strategy. You need to observe. You need to bring the quality of your attention, clear, unflinching, fully committed attention to the thing you have been keeping in superposition. And watch what happens. What happens is not what you expect. What happens is not a dramatic surge of energy or a sudden alignment of circumstances. What happens is more quiet and more permanent than that. What happens is that the pattern you have been living inside becomes visible to you in a way it was not visible before. And once you can see the pattern, you are no longer inside it. You are the one watching it, and the one watching is not the same as the one who was caught in it. That distinction between the one who is caught in the pattern and the one who watches the pattern is the most important distinction I can offer you today. Because it is the difference between being driven by your reality and being the observer of your reality. And the observer, as we have established, is the most powerful position in the universe. Not because the observer controls, but because the observer sees clearly. And clarity is the only force that transforms without resistance. Pause here. This is not a thought exercise. This is an observation. I want you to do something specific right now, not later, not when you have more time or more energy or more of the right feeling. Now, while you are in this transmission, while the clarity is present, I want you to identify the specific thing you've been waiting on, not the category, not the general area of your life where you know there is unfinished business. The specific thing, the decision that has been sitting at the edge of your awareness for longer than you want to admit. The commitment you have been approaching and retreating from with the precision of someone who knows exactly where the line is and exactly how close they can get without crossing it. You know what it is. You have always known. The mind will try to offer you several options, several candidates, as if the task is to identify the correct one from a list. But the body already knows. There is something that tightened slightly when I said specific thing. Something that became more alert. Something that said quietly, yes, that one's. Stay with that. Don't move past it. Don't let the mind redirect you to something safer or more manageable or more socially acceptable to examine. Stay with the specific thing. Now watch yourself watching it. Notice the quality of your attention as it approaches this thing. Notice where it wants to slide away. Notice the thoughts that arise to pull your focus in a different direction. The suddenly urgent consideration about something else. The memory that surfaces to interrupt. The question about whether this is really the right thing to be examining right now. Notice all of that. And notice that you can notice it. That there is something in you that can watch the avoidance without being the avoidance. That something is the observer. And the observer is already present. Already watching. Already doing the thing that changes reality. Now bring your attention back to the specific thing, and this time, instead of looking at it from the distance you usually maintain, I want you to look at it the way Elias looked at his 7 years. without the softening, without the story you usually tell about why the timing isn't right, or why you need more preparation, or why this particular version of waiting is actually wisdom. Look at it without the story. What do you see? If you are willing to answer that honestly, if you are willing to let the observation be complete rather than comfortable, what you see is not a problem waiting to be solved. What you see is a decision waiting to be made. A specific, clear, accountable decision that has been waiting in the superposition of your avoidance for as long as you have been waiting for the conditions to make it safe. The conditions will not make it safe. That is not what conditions do. Conditions change. Conditions improve and deteriorate and shift in ways that are not responsive to your readiness. The safety you are waiting for is not a condition. It is a posture. It is the posture of the observer who has looked clearly enough at the thing to see it for what it is, and who understands that the looking itself is the act of power. Now speak it, not out loud if you are not alone, but internally with the full weight of a genuine declaration, rather than a wish or a hope or a preference. Speak the decision, not I want to, not I'm going to try, not someday or when the time is right. Speak who you are, present tense, decided tense. This is who I am now. And feel what happens in your body when you say it that way. Not the way you usually say it, hedged and conditioned and surrounded by the protective language of maybe. Say it with the precision of someone who has looked at the thing clearly enough to see it and who is done looking away. That is the observer practice. That is the collapse of the wave function. And it is available to you right now in this moment with the energy you have, with the circumstances that exist, without waiting for anything additional to arrive. Let's go to the next layer, because there is something underneath what we have just observed that is worth examining carefully. The question I want to ask you now is not about motivation or identity or commitment. It is about something more fundamental. It is about the relationship between observation and time. Because here is what I have watched happen to people who finally make the decision, who finally collapse the superposition and commit to the specific version of themselves they have been keeping at a distance. They encounter the gap between the decision and the evidence, the gap between who they have declared themselves to be and the accumulated reality of who they have been. And in that gap, something happens that is worth being prepared for. The mind begins to produce evidence against the decision. Not because the decision was wrong, but because the brain, and this is neuroscience now, this is the measurable mechanics of neural pattern formation. The brain is wired to maintain consistency with its established patterns. It has spent years, possibly decades, reinforcing the neural pathways that support the identity of the one who waits. Those pathways are deep. They are efficient. They fire easily and automatically the way a river runs in its established channel. And when you declare a new identity, when you commit to being a different kind of person, you are not just making a philosophical statement. You are beginning the neurological work of carving new channels, of creating new pathways that do not yet have the depth or efficiency of the old ones. And in the early period of that work, the old pathways feel more real than the new ones. The old identity feels more accurate than the declared one. The waiting feels more natural than the deciding. And the mind, which is always trying to resolve the tension between what is and what you have declared should be, will present you with arguments, sophisticated, internally consistent, almost convincing arguments for why the decision was premature, why you need more time, why the conditions are not yet right, why the version of you that waits is actually the wiser version. This is the moment that separates the ones who transform from the ones who return to the superposition. Because this moment, this specific, uncomfortable, evidence-free gap between the decision and the life that reflects it, this moment is not evidence that the decision was wrong. It is evidence that the decision was real. A decision that does not encounter resistance is not a genuine decision. It is a preference. And preferences, as we established at the beginning, fold. They fold the moment the conditions stop supporting them. The moment the weather changes, the moment the feeling dissipates. A genuine decision holds in the gap. It holds in the absence of evidence. It holds in the presence of the mind's arguments against it. Not through gritted teeth willpower. That is not sustainable, and it is not what I am describing. But through the observer's clarity, through the ability to watch the mind produce its arguments without being moved by them, to see the resistance for what it is, the old pattern defending its territory, and to continue acting from the declared identity anyway. This is what commitment looks like from the inside, not the dramatic, emotional, inspirational version of commitment that looks like fire and certainty and the feeling of inevitability. The actual interior experience of commitment looks like continuing to act from the decision in the absence of the feeling that the decision was right. It looks like showing up for the identity you declared when every neural pathway in your brain is telling you to return to the comfort of the old pattern. It looks like being the observer of your own resistance rather than the one who is controlled by it. Watch yourself thinking right now. Notice the thoughts that have been arising as I describe this. Notice the part of your mind that is calculating whether this applies to you, whether your situation is different, whether the specific circumstances of your life make this particular principle less applicable. Notice the part that is already composing the exception. The argument for why your version of waiting is actually different from the pattern I am describing. Notice it, and notice that you can notice it, and notice that the one who notices is not the one who is composing the exception. That distinction is everything, because the one who notices, the observer, is not caught in the argument. The observer is watching the argument, and from the watching position, the argument looks exactly like what it is. The mind performing its protective function, doing the job it believes it was assigned, keeping the identity safe from the risk of specific commitment. And from the watching position, you can make a different choice. Not by suppressing the argument, not by forcing the mind to stop producing it, but by watching it clearly enough that it loses its authority over you, by seeing it so precisely that you recognize it as a pattern rather than a truth, as a function of the nervous system's preference for established patterns rather than an accurate report on the state of your potential. This is the observer's power, not the power to control the mind. The power to see it clearly enough that it stops controlling you. Now let me take you to the layer that most people never reach. The layer underneath the waiting. Underneath the fear of specific failure. Underneath the neural patterns that defend the established identity. The layer where the real question lives. The real question is not whether you are capable. You already know you are capable. The evidence of your capability is so abundant that you have had to work quite hard to maintain the story that you are not ready yet. The real question is not whether the timing is right. Timing is a function of decision, not a prerequisite for it. The path does not clear before you walk it. The path clears because you walk it. The real question is not whether you deserve the version of yourself you can see. The real question is this: who are you without the waiting? Because the waiting has become more than a strategy. It has become an identity. It has become the answer to the question of who you are. You are the one who is preparing, the one who is almost ready, the one with extraordinary potential that will manifest under the right conditions, the one who sees clearly what is possible and who is at this very moment gathering the resources and the readiness and the alignment necessary to step into that possibility. That is an identity, a coherent, internally consistent, socially legible identity. And it has one devastating feature. It is an identity that requires the potential to remain unrealized in order to remain intact. Because the moment you step into the specific version of yourself you have been describing, the identity of the one who is about to step into it ceases to exist. Look at that. Look at it directly, because this is the layer that most people never see. And it is the layer that explains everything else. The waiting is not just a fear of failure, it is a protection of an identity that is built on the premise of unrealized potential. And that identity, as comfortable and as convincing as it is a construction. It is a story. And like all stories, it only has the power over you that you give it through your continued belief in it. The moment you observe it clearly, the moment you see it as a construction rather than a truth, it begins to lose its structural integrity. Not because you attacked it, not because you argued against it or replaced it with a more positive story, but because you looked at it with the quality of attention that reveals constructions for what they are. The attention of the observer who sees clearly. And here is what I want you to understand about what happens when that construction begins to dissolve. It feels like loss before it feels like freedom. The dissolution of an identity, even an identity that has been limiting you, even an identity that has been keeping you suspended in the posture of waiting. The dissolution feels like something is being taken away, like a ground you are standing on is becoming less solid, like a story that made sense of your life is becoming harder to tell. This is not a sign that something is going wrong. This is the exact feeling of the wave function collapsing, of the superposition resolving into specificity, of the blur becoming clear, and the clarity, while it is arriving, can feel disorienting. Because you have been navigating by the blur for so long, that clarity looks, at first, like being lost. You are not lost, you are found. You have simply arrived at the specific location of your life rather than the vague, comfortable, potential-filled location you have been describing from a safe distance. This is where I want to bring in the second practice. Because we have reached the layer where the intellectual understanding is not sufficient, where the observation needs to become embodied, where the clarity needs to move from the mind into the body, into the nervous system, into the actual lived experience of being the observer, rather than the one who is observed. Pause here. This is not a thought exercise. This is an observation. I want you to notice your breathing right now, not to change it, not to deepen it or slow it or control it in any way. simply to notice it, to be the one who is watching the breath rather than the one who is breathing. Notice the quality of that shift, the very slight but distinct difference between being inside the experience and watching the experience, between the breath happening and the awareness of the breath happening. Now stay in that watching position and ask yourself from the observer's perspective, not from the mind's perspective, not from the story's perspective, but from the clear, quiet, watching position. What is the specific decision that has been waiting for me to make it? Not what should I do, not what would be smart or safe or strategically optimal. What decision has been waiting? What specific commitment has been living in the superposition of my avoidance, kept there by the story that the timing isn't right, that I need more preparation, that the conditions will eventually align in a way that makes the step feel safe? Let the observer look at it, not the mind, the observer. The one who watches without interpreting, the one who sees without immediately constructing a story about what is seen. What does the observer see? If you allow the answer to arrive from the watching position rather than from the thinking position, it will be simpler and more specific than you expect. It will not be a strategy, it will not be a plan, it will be a recognition. A seeing of something that was already there, that you already knew, that has been waiting not for the right conditions, but for you to look at it clearly enough to acknowledge it. That recognition is the collapse of the wave function. That is the moment the superposition resolves. That is the observer effect applied to the architecture of your becoming. Now stay with what you just saw. Don't rush past it. Don't let the mind immediately begin to plan or strategize or construct the roadmap for executing the decision. Stay in the seeing. Let the seeing be complete before the doing begins. Because a decision made from complete seeing is fundamentally different from a decision made from the pressure of urgency or the temporary force of motivation. A decision made from complete seeing has the quality of inevitability. Not because the path is clear, because the observer is clear. The path clarifies through walking, not before. Let me tell you about Mira. Mira had spent 11 years building what she described as the foundation for the work she was actually meant to do. She had the skills, she had the experience. She had, by any objective measure, more than enough of both to begin. But she was building the foundation, acquiring the last few pieces of preparation that would make the beginning feel justified, earned, safe. The thing she was actually meant to do was right. Not professionally, not yet. That was the next stage, the one that came after the foundation was complete. She was meant to write in the way that some people are meant to breathe, not as a choice, but as a necessity, as the thing that happens when the self is functioning correctly. She had known this since she was a child. She had known it the way you know things that are true before you have the language for them. But writing was specific. Writing was accountable. Writing produced a thing that could be read and evaluated and found lacking. Writing required her to be, in the most exposed and irreducible sense, exactly who she was, no more, no less. And that exposure, that specificity, that irreducible accountability to the quality of her own seeing, that was the thing she had been building the foundation to prepare for 11 years. One afternoon, Mira was sitting with a woman she had known for decades, a woman who was, by that point, quite old. And the old woman asked her a question that Mira had not been asked before, or perhaps had been asked many times and had never been willing to hear clearly. The old woman asked, "What are you waiting for the foundation to protect you from? Not when will the foundation be complete. Not what does the foundation still need. What are you waiting for to protect you from? Mira sat with that question for a long time, and then she looked. Not at the foundation, at what the foundation was for. At what specific thing it was designed to stand between her and the work she was meant to do. And what she saw when she looked with the kind of clarity that the old woman's question had created was not a lack of preparation, it was a terror of being seen. Of being seen clearly, completely, without the protection of almost. Of being known through the work as exactly who she was, not who she might become, not who she was preparing to be, but who she actually was right now, with the specific quality of seeing she currently possessed. The foundation was not preparation for the work. The foundation was protection from the exposure that the work required. And the moment she saw that, the moment the observation was complete, something dissolved. Not the fear. The fear remained, or something like it remained, a physical sensation in the chest that she recognized as the body's response to genuine risk. But the story dissolved. The story that the foundation was wisdom rather than avoidance. The story that she was not yet ready. The story that the work required her to be more than she currently was before it could begin. She went home that afternoon and wrote, not with the feeling of readiness, not with the sense that the foundation was finally complete, with the specific, clear, quietly terrifying recognition that the work did not require her to be ready, it required her to be present. And present was the one thing she had always been capable of being in every moment without preparation. The foundation, it turned out, had always been complete. The work had been waiting not for the foundation, but for Mira to look at what the foundation was actually for. And you have a foundation, you have been building it or calling it something else, or describing it in language that makes it sound like progress rather than protection. And somewhere in the architecture of that foundation, there is the specific thing it is designed to stand between you and. The specific exposure, the specific accountability, the specific irreducible reality of being exactly who you are. Doing the specific thing you are meant to do with the exact quality of capacity you currently possess. Not the capacity you will have when the preparation is complete, the capacity you have now. Because here's what I have observed, watching this pattern across the full range of human lives. The capacity you have now is not the problem. The capacity you have now is sufficient to begin. And beginning is the only thing that produces the additional capacity that the mind is currently using as a prerequisite. The capacity to do the work grows through doing the work, not through preparing to do it, not through building the foundation that will one day support the doing, through the doing itself. The brain rewires around behavior, not around intention. This is not philosophy. This is the documented, measurable, reproducible mechanics of neuroplasticity. You cannot think your way into becoming someone. You cannot prepare your way into becoming someone. You behave your way there. The behavior comes first, the capacity follows. The identity consolidates around the evidence that the behavior produces. This is why the decision must come before the feeling of readiness. Not because readiness is unimportant, but because readiness is a product of action, not a prerequisite for it. The ones who wait to feel ready are waiting for a feeling that can only be produced by the thing they are waiting to feel ready for. It is a loop that closes on itself, a system that cannot generate what it requires to begin. The only exit from that loop is the decision. The specific, clear, accountable, observer-level decision that says, I am beginning now with what I have, as who I am, without waiting for the conditions to guarantee my safety. That decision is available to you, not in some future moment when the clarity is stronger, or the fear is smaller, or the foundation is more complete. Now. In this moment, as the observer who has been watching this transmission and who has, if you have been genuinely present, seen something in the last several minutes that you could not unsee if you tried. You already see it, you just haven't admitted it to yourself yet. But the seeing has happened, the observation has been made, and what has been seen cannot be unseen. Let me address something directly now, because I know what happens in the mind of the person who has been following this transmission carefully. I know the specific counter-argument that has been forming, the one that sounds like wisdom and feels like realism, and is in fact neither. The counter-argument goes something like this. This is all very well as a principle, but my situation is specific. My circumstances are different. The thing I am waiting for is not the same as the generic waiting this transmission is describing. My waiting is practical. My waiting is strategic. My waiting is justified by the actual conditions of my actual life. I hear that. I hear it clearly. And I want to offer you something in response that is not a dismissal of your specific circumstances, but a more precise observation of them. Your circumstances are real. The practical considerations of your life are real. The constraints and the responsibilities and the genuine complexities of your specific situation are real. I am not asking you to ignore them. I am asking you to look at them with the observer's clarity rather than the avoider's creativity. Because the mind that is committed to waiting is extraordinarily creative in the production of circumstantial justifications. It will find in any set of circumstances the specific features that support the conclusion that now is not the right time, and it will present those features with the authority of realism and the vocabulary of wisdom. The observer sees both the circumstances and the mind's interpretation of the circumstances. The observer can distinguish between a genuine constraint and a convenient one, between a practical consideration and a constructed justification, between the actual conditions of your life and the story you are telling about those conditions in service of the waiting. That distinction is yours to make. I cannot make it for you. Only the observer in you can make it. Only the part of you that can watch the mind's argument without being inside it can see clearly enough to know whether the waiting is genuine wisdom or sophisticated avoidance dressed in the language of wisdom. And here is the test. Here is the precise, observable, measurable test that distinguishes one from the other. If you remove the story about the circumstances, if you stripped away the narrative and looked only at the actual, physical, present tense reality of your situation, would the step be possible? Not comfortable, not guaranteed, not safe, possible. If the answer is yes, the waiting is the story. Not the circumstances. This is not a comfortable observation. I am not offering it to make you comfortable. I am offering it because you came here to look, and this is what there is to see. And the seeing, as we have established, is the transformation, not a step toward it, the seeing itself. Now let's talk about what happens after the decision. Because there is a mythology around the moment of commitment that is worth dismantling carefully. The mythology says that the moment of genuine decision is accompanied by a feeling, a surge, a sense of rightness that makes the path forward feel clear and the resistance feel manageable and the identity feel stable. The mythology says that when you have truly decided, you will know it because of how it feels. This mythology has ended more genuine decisions than almost any other force I have observed, because the actual experience of genuine commitment in the moment of its making often feels like nothing particularly dramatic at all. It feels quiet. It feels specific. It feels like a line being drawn in the interior with no fanfare and no audience and no confirming surge of emotion. It feels like saying something true in a room where no one else can hear it, and then the next morning arrives, and the feeling is not there, and the mind begins to produce its arguments, and the circumstances look exactly as they looked before the decision was made, because the decision was made in the interior and the exterior has not yet received the news. And the gap between the decision and the evidence is at its widest. This is the moment of the most significant test, not the moment of the decision, the morning after, the week after, the month after, when the initial energy of the commitment has settled and the work is simply the work, and the identity is simply the identity, and there is no dramatic confirmation from the universe that the decision was correct. This is where the observer becomes essential, because the observer can watch the gap without being destroyed by it. The observer can see the absence of evidence and recognize it as the early period of construction, rather than as proof that the construction is impossible. The observer can watch the mind produce its arguments against the decision and recognize them as the old neural pathways firing, the established channels of the river defending their territory against the new direction. And the observer can continue, not through force, not through willpower, through the clarity of having seen the pattern completely enough that the pattern has lost its authority, through the recognition that the waiting was a construction, and constructions once seen clearly cannot reassemble themselves with the same convincing force. This is not a one-time event. The decision is made once, genuinely, completely from the observer's position. And then it is honored again and again in the smaller decisions of every subsequent day. The decision to act from the identity rather than from the mood. The decision to continue when the feeling is not present. The decision to be the person you have declared yourself to be, even in the moments when the declaration feels hollow and the evidence has not yet arrived to support it. Each of those smaller decisions is a remade commitment. Each one deepens the neural pathway of the new identity. Each one produces a small piece of evidence that the observer can use to calibrate against the mind's arguments, not to silence the arguments. The mind will continue to produce them for some time, and that is fine, but to see them in proportion, to watch them from the observer's position without being moved by them in the way you were moved before the seeing happened. The brain rewires around behavior. The identity consolidates around evidence. The evidence is produced by action. The action comes from the decision. The decision comes from the observer who has looked clearly enough at the waiting to see it for what it is. That is the complete mechanics. That is the full loop. And it begins not with action, but with observation, with the willingness to look at the specific thing you have been keeping in the comfortable blur of your avoidance, and to let the observation be complete. I want to speak now to the community of observers who have gathered around this transmission, because there is something important about what happens when more than one person is watching. In quantum mechanics, there is a phenomenon called quantum entanglement. When two particles interact in certain ways, they become correlated in a manner that persists regardless of the distance between them. What happens to one affects the other instantaneously, without any signal passing between them. Einstein famously called this spooky action at a distance and spent years trying to disprove it. The experiments have confirmed it repeatedly. Entangled particles behave as if they are part of a single system, even when separated by vast distances. I am not going to overextend this metaphor into territory it cannot support. But I want to point at something real that happens when a field of observers gathers around a shared act of seeing. When multiple people bring the quality of clear, unflinching, observer-level attention to the same pattern, something happens to the visibility of that pattern. It becomes harder to look away from. The collective seeing creates a kind of clarity that individual seeing alone cannot produce. The field of observers amplifies the quality of the observation. This is why I am asking you right now to do something specific. In the comments below this transmission, I want you to share the one thing you saw when you looked, not the thing you plan to do about it, not the strategy for addressing it. The thing you saw, the specific, clear, previously avoided truth that the observer in you recognized during this transmission. The thing that tightened slightly when I described it. The thing that said quietly, yes, that one. Share what you saw, not because sharing it with others will make it more real. The seeing has already made it real. But because naming it in a space where other observers are watching creates an accountability that is different from private recognition. When you name what you saw in a field of people who are also looking, the vagueness that protected the pattern dissolves a little further. The construction loses a little more of its structural integrity. The observer effect amplifies. Type, if you are willing, these words, I see it now, and it cannot unsee itself, because that is the truth of what has happened in this transmission if you have been genuinely present. The seeing has occurred, and what has been seen, the pattern, the waiting, the construction of the identity that required the potential to remain unrealized. What has been seen cannot be unseen. The observation is complete. The wave function has collapsed. The superposition has resolved. The specific form that your reality takes from this point forward is a function of what you do with the clarity. And what you do with the clarity is a function of whether you remain in the observer's position, watching the mind, watching the patterns, watching the resistance without being controlled by it, or whether you return to the comfortable blur of strategic vagueness. You do not have to return. That is the thing I most want you to understand. The return is not inevitable. It is a choice. And it is a choice that becomes more available to you the more completely you have seen the pattern. Because the pattern that has been seen clearly cannot reassemble itself with the same convincing force. The construction that has been observed for what it is cannot present itself as truth with the same authority it had before the observation. You are not the same person who began this transmission. The observer in you has been active. Things have been seen that were not seen before, and the seeing has changed the field of your becoming in ways that will continue to reveal themselves as you move forward. Now let me give you the integration principle. The one thing that, if you carry it with you from this transmission, will continue to work in your life long after the specific insights have settled into the background. The integration principle is this: before you wait, observe. Not instead of waiting, before it. Before you settle into the posture of waiting for the motivation or the inspiration or the right conditions or the feeling of readiness, pause and observe. Observe the waiting itself. Look at it with the observer's clarity. What is this waiting protecting? What is the specific thing it is designed to stand between me and? What identity is it serving? What construction is it maintaining? And then ask the observer's question. If I saw this completely, if I looked at it without the softening, without the story, without the protective vagueness, what would I see? Because what you see when you look that clearly is the decision, always. The specific, clear, accountable decision that has been waiting for you to observe it into existence. The commitment that has been living in the superposition of your avoidance, waiting for the quality of attention that collapses it into the specificity of reality. Before you wait, observe and let the observation do what observation does. Collapse the superposition, resolve the potential into the specific. Change the thing being watched by the act of watching it clearly. That is not a technique, it is a way of being. It is the observer's way of moving through the world. Not reacting to reality, but watching it. Not being driven by patterns, but seeing them. Not waiting for conditions to change, but changing the conditions through the quality of your seeing. This is the third and final practice I want to offer you, and it is the simplest of the three, because simplicity is what remains when the complexity of the construction has been seen through. Every morning, not when you feel like it, not when the circumstances are favorable, not when the motivation is present, but every morning as a practice of the observer. Ask yourself one question. Ask it before you check the phone, before you consult the to-do list, before you assess the conditions or evaluate the circumstances or calculate the energy available for the day. Ask it from the observer's position, from the quiet watching place that exists before the mind begins its morning commentary. The question is this: who have I decided to be? Not who do I want to be? Not who am I trying to become? Who have I decided to be? Present tense, decided tense. The specific, clear, accountable identity that the observer in you chose when it looked at the waiting and saw it completely. And then act like that person before the feeling arrives, before the evidence accumulates, before the conditions confirm that the decision was correct. Act from the identity, not from the mood. Act from the decision, not from the weather, because the weather will change, the motivation will come and go, the inspiration will arrive and dissipate. The conditions will shift in ways that are not responsive to your readiness. All of that is true, and all of that is irrelevant to the observer who has made the decision and who acts from the decision regardless of the atmospheric conditions of any given morning. The river does not stop moving because the terrain is difficult. It does not wait for easier ground. It cuts through. It goes around. It finds the path that serves the direction. Not because it is more powerful than the terrain, because it is more committed to its direction than the terrain is to stopping it. You are not less capable than water. You are simply less committed to your direction. Or you were. Before today, before this transmission, before the observer in you looked at the waiting and saw it clearly enough that it could not reassemble itself with the same convincing force. let me say something to the part of you that is still calculating. The part that has been following this transmission with genuine attention, but that is also in the background assessing whether the insights are applicable, whether the specific circumstances of your life make them relevant, whether the version of the pattern being described here is close enough to your version to warrant the same response. I see that part, and I'm not asking it to stop calculating. The calculating mind is useful. It is one of the tools of the observer, not the enemy of the observer. But I am asking it to notice something. I am asking it to notice that the calculation itself, the ongoing assessment of applicability and relevance, and whether your situation is specific enough to be an exception, is a form of the waiting. It is the mind doing what the mind does when it is committed to the posture of almost. When it is serving the identity of the one who is always on the verge of deciding rather than the one who has decided. Notice that, and notice that you can notice it. And notice that the one who notices is not the one who is calculating, that is the observer. And the observer has already seen enough. The observer does not need more information. It does not need the calculation to be complete. It does not need the applicability to be confirmed by external evidence. The observer has looked at the pattern and recognized it, and the recognition is the transformation. You have been here in this transmission for a significant amount of time. And if you have been genuinely present, if you have been watching rather than just listening, observing rather than just consuming, something has shifted, not dramatically, not with the fanfare of a motivational surge, but with the quiet, permanent, irreversible quality of something that has been seen. The waiting has been seen. The construction has been observed. The identity that required the potential to remain unrealized in order to remain intact has been looked at directly, without the softening, without the story. And what has been seen cannot be unseen. This is the most important thing I can tell you about what happens next. You do not need to do anything dramatic. You do not need to make a public declaration or redesign your life or execute a comprehensive plan in the next 24 hours. You need to make one decision, the specific, clear, accountable decision that the observer in you identified when it looked at the waiting without the story. Make that decision quietly, without ceremony, in the interior, where decisions that last are always made. Say to yourself with the full weight of genuine resolution, rather than the temporary force of emotional momentum, this is who I am now, not who I am trying to become, not who I hope to be under better conditions, who I am, present tense, decided tense, and then act like that person tomorrow morning, before the feeling arrives, before the evidence accumulates, before the conditions confirm that the decision was correct. Act in from the identity, from the decision, from the observer's clarity. That is all. That is everything. That is the complete mechanics of the transformation that you came here looking for. Not as motivation, not as inspiration, not as a surge of feeling that carries you somewhere significant, but as the observer's act of clear seeing that collapses the superposition of your waiting into the specificity of your becoming. The fact that you are still here at this point in the transmission means something. It means you are willing to look. That is rare. Most people turn away before the observation becomes complete. Most people find, somewhere in the middle of a transmission like this one, a reason to redirect their attention. A suddenly urgent consideration, a more comfortable direction, a thought that presents itself as important and is actually just the mind protecting the construction. Most people never reach the layer where the pattern becomes fully visible. You reached it, you looked, and the looking has done what looking always does at the quantum level of your reality. It has changed the thing being observed. It has collapsed the superposition. It has resolved the blur of all possible versions into the specificity of the version that has been waiting for you to see it clearly. You are not broken, you are not lacking motivation, you are not missing the talent or the inspiration or the touch of some current that others have been given and you have been denied. You are uncommitted, or you were. And uncommitted can be transformed in a single moment by a single choice made with genuine resolution. That moment is this one. That choice is available to you right now. Not in the future, not when the conditions are better, not when the foundation is more complete or the timing is more favorable or the feeling of readiness finally arrives. Now, in this moment, as the observer who has looked clearly enough to see. Make the decision, honor it tomorrow. Honor it the day after and the day after that in the small, unglamorous daily choices of acting from the identity rather than from the mood, and watch what happens. Watch what the observer effect produces when you bring the full quality of your clear, committed, unflinching attention to the specific version of yourself you have decided to be. Watch what reality does when you stop looking away. Because here is what I have observed watching this pattern across the full range of human lives. The ones who stop waiting do not find that the path becomes easier. They find that the path becomes real, specific, navigable. Something that can be walked rather than something that can only be described. And there's a quality of aliveness in the walking. Even the difficult walking, even the walking that produces failure and adjustment, and the humbling evidence of imperfection, there is a quality of aliveness in it that the waiting never produces. The waiting is comfortable. The walking is real, and real even when it is hard, even when it is uncertain, even when the evidence has not yet caught up to the commitment. Real is what you are here for, not the comfortable blur of potential. The specific, clear, accountable reality of a life being lived from a decided identity. That is what becomes available the moment you stop waiting. Not a perfect life, not a guaranteed outcome, not a path without difficulty or failure, or the ongoing work of maintaining the decision in the face of the mind's arguments against it. But a real life, a specific life, a life that the observer in you can look at directly, without the softening, without the story, and recognize as genuinely, irreducibly, precisely yours. That is what shifts. Not the circumstances, not the conditions, not the external landscape of your life, at least not immediately, not before the behavior has had time to produce the evidence that reshapes the landscape. What shifts is the position you occupy in relation to your own reality. From the one who waits for reality to arrange itself favorably around the waiting, to the observer, the one who sees clearly, the one who decides, the one who acts from the decision before the feeling arrives, the one who watches the resistance without being controlled by it, the one who continues quietly without ceremony in the direction they had chosen. The observer is the most powerful position in the universe, not because the observer controls, because the observer sees clearly. And clarity The specific, unflinching, complete clarity of the one who has looked at the pattern and seen it fully. Clarity is the only force that transforms without resistance. You have that clarity now. Use it. Not later. Now. In the specific decision that the observer in you has already identified. In the act of stepping across the line that has been drawn in your interior for longer than you want to admit. In the quiet, unglamorous, completely real choice to be who you have decided to be, beginning today with the energy you have, with the circumstances that exist, without waiting for anything additional to arrive. If this transmission has shown you something worth sharing, if the observer in you recognizes that someone else in your life is standing at the same line, waiting for the same conditions, carrying the same construction of almost share this, not because sharing it will make you feel better about what you saw, but because the observer effect amplifies in a field of observers. When you place this in front of someone who has been avoiding the look, you give them permission to see what they already know is there. The clarity you receive does not diminish when you pass it forward. It deepens for both of you. That is the nature of collective observation. What one person sees clearly becomes easier for the next person to see. Share this with the one who needs the courage to look at what they have been avoiding and watch what the field of observers does when it grows. If you are staying in this field, if you want to continue the practice of the observer, the progressive unveiling of the patterns that have been running your reality from beneath the level of your ordinary attention, then stay. Subscribe, not because you need more content, because you need more observation, because the observer's work is not done in a single transmission. It is a practice. A daily, ongoing, deepening practice of bringing the quality of clear, unflinching, genuine attention to the things that have been controlling you from the comfortable blur of your avoidance. Every transmission in this field is an invitation to look at something you have been pretending is not there. And every time you look, every time you let the observation be complete rather than comfortable, something transforms, not because you forced it, because you saw it. What you watch, you change. What you avoid watching controls you. You are not here to fix your life. You are here to watch it transform the moment you stop looking away. You are never meant to look away. The observer is awake in you now, and what has been seen cannot be unseen. Now you see, and what has been seen cannot be unseen. And when the noise of the day has settled tonight, when you find yourself reacting instead of watching, come back to this. Re-watch it from the observer's position. The second time through, you will see what the first pass kept just out of reach. The pattern reveals itself differently once you know you are looking for it. The next transmission to watch is the quantum field noticed you've changed. Because the observer who has just made a decision is now emitting a different frequency. And understanding how the field responds to that shift, what it notices, what it begins to reorganize around your new signal, is the precise next layer of what you have started here today.